Today's journal entry focuses on how I learned to love my natural hair and what my natural hair journey looked like for me. But before I get to that, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Janellis. I created this YouTube channel to share my personal journey towards trauma healing in a completely transparent way. It is my goal with this channel to enable myself and others to live a life filled with joy, trust, and fulfillment. If you would like to join me on this journey, please subscribe to my channel. So today's journal entry isn't an entry that I'm going to read verbatim like my other ones. Instead, is a timeline that I have for myself in terms of things that I want to touch in this video. So with that said, I would first like to point out that I'm half Black and half Hispanic. My dad's side of the family is Black and my mom's side of the family is Dominican. And when I was younger, when I lived in New York, I was mostly around my mom's side of the family, and they weren't used to my hair type at all. Like, they're used to having a hair type that's easier to comb through and easier to manage. So when it came to dealing with my hair, my mom didn't really know what she was doing, but her family didn't really know either. And it's very common for people to go to salons. Like, they're not very expensive, or at least they weren't very expensive at the time. I'm not sure what the prices are now, but it wasn't uncommon to go there like on a weekly basis or something like that. And for Dominican salons, it's very common to use a lot of heat products, like first putting your hair under a hair dryer, then blow drying, and then flat iron, which is a lot of heat damage, especially for my hair type. So my hair was already more difficult to manage, and then on top of that, it probably had heat damage as well, which makes it even harder to manage. So going back to my mom's side of the family, being used to having a different hair type, it also affected how they did my hair. Like, for my hair type, it's really important when you reach a tangle to work through it slowly, but they wouldn't do that. They would just kind of like try to force their way through, and that was a very painful experience for me because essentially my hair was being yanked as they were trying to detangle it, and that would cause me to cry and like show them that I was in pain. But the way that they reacted to this was by telling me that I was tender-headed, and then kind of telling my mom, like, you need to do something with her hair. She can't, deal with it being done. She's very tender-headed, which honestly, I might have been a little bit tender-headed, but I'm just gonna stick to the fact that they were pulling my hair. Like, that's gonna hurt. If someone comes up to you and just yanks at your hair, you're going to say ouch because it hurts. And another thing that I would like to point out for this period of my life is my mom's side of the family, whenever they would see my hair was straight, they would like over compliment how beautiful it was and how I looked pretty that day. But if I had my hair curly or in pigtails, they would make more like jokes against it. And it was never jokes that I found funny. Like, it always hurt my feelings, but whenever I would say that, they would just tell me I couldn't take a joke, or they would just kind of twisted it that way. So that kind of taught me that my natural hair was ugly, because that's how they always made me feel when they saw it in that way. And then when I was in 4th grade, we moved to Kansas. But before we moved to Kansas, it was really instilled in my mom from both sides of the family, I think, that she wouldn't have salons to help her with my hair, that she really needed to do something else. And the solution that was really pushed on her was for her to have my hair relaxed. Like, they were like, it will just make her hair straight and it'll be so much easier to deal with. It'll be so much prettier. And I think she did it a lot because of that pressure. Like, to help me not be in so much pain whenever my hair was being done. And I would also like to point out, my mom didn't do the like yank thing. She really did try to slowly detangle it. But I had so much hair, and my hair was kinkier back then than it is now. So she really did try her best, and she was really trying to listen to advice, but the advice that she was being given were from people who didn't know much about my hair type, and they were too prideful to admit that. Like, they would pretend they were more knowledgeable than they were, and my mom had no reason to not trust them, so she took their word for it, and she was really trying, and nothing was working. So I feel like she felt cornered into thinking that a relaxer was the only solution. And that leads to the next phase of my life of when I had my hair relaxed, which was a very long time. It was from 4th grade to my junior year of college. And I would say during the first half of this time, I was getting my hair relaxed every 2 to 3 months. So it had gotten to the point that I forgot what my natural hair was like. Like, I just assumed my hair sometimes would get a little bit of volume, but was mostly pretty flat and straight. And that was until middle school, I think, either late middle school or early high school, where for whatever reason, I went closer to 7 or 8 months without getting my hair relaxed. And my hair, first of all, grew a lot faster during that time period, but I also remember just having so much more volume. And that was just from a couple inches of my natural hair. And I really loved how it looked until I got my hair relaxed again and all that volume was taken out. So that really highlighted to me that, oh, whenever I feel my hair looks too straight or too flat, it's because I don't have my natural hair. It's because I don't like how my hair looks relaxed. So I expressed interest in growing my hair out natural, and I was always met with comments like, no, when you were younger, you couldn't deal with the pain of your hair being like detangled, or no, you can't do that, your hair will break and fall off, which I never understood that reasoning. Or some people would just blatantly say like, no, that's gonna look really ugly, which I always thought was very rude, and like I just didn't understand that. Like I thought like, I like how it looks, like why are you trying to make me feel bad for how my hair naturally grows? But I was met with these comments so often for so long that I started adopting these comments as opinions of my own. And that was until I was at college, where one of my friends asked me, why don't you just grow out your natural hair? Like, it's hard for you to find people to relax it properly, and then when you do, you don't really like what it looks like after your hair is relaxed. And then I found myself starting to say the different things that had always been said to me. And one of them was, I don't want to grow out my natural hair because it's going to take too long for it to grow out. And she pointed out, you have your whole life. Like, why does it matter that it takes a while? Like, the time's going to pass either way, and this is something you want to do. And then that's where it really struck me. You're right. Like, I've been talking about wanting to grow out my natural hair for so long that if I would have started back when I've been saying this, it'd be grown out by now. But that doesn't mean I can't start now, and then a couple years from now, it'll be grown out. Like, I shouldn't let that stop me. And that was the day that I made the decision to grow out my natural hair. Which leads to the next section of my life, which was junior year of college to be getting my master's. And this was when my hair was in the transition phase. The transition phase didn't really become difficult until I would say about a fourth of my hair was natural. And that was because having the two hair textures, like having that much natural and then the relaxed hair, just made it more prone to getting tangled. So I remember like trying to look up different hairstyles and things that I could do to help with that. And something that I read and completely misunderstood was the wash and go hairstyle. Like, my understanding was that you literally wash it and then you just let it air dry. I was like, what? You don't even have to detangle it? No, you do have to detangle it. I learned that the hard way. I get it. It should have been common sense. But for whatever reason, it wasn't. I'd also like to point out I had like 3 jobs at the time. I was tired. Cut me some slack. I went a couple of days without truly detangling my hair, but I was still putting product in it. And the result to that was getting a spot here and here of like tangles that just got worse because I kept putting more product to try to loosen it, but it did the opposite. It just made it get harder and tighter. And it got to the point that they literally felt like 2 hard rocks. And I found a natural hair specialist to help me with my hair. But even her, after like 5 or 6 hours, was like, girl, I'm sorry, but I think I'm going to have to cut this. And she saved as much of the hair as she could, but it definitely left me with the section of hair down here that was shorter than the rest. It wasn't 100% obvious, but it definitely looked a little bit thinner in those areas. And I remember I told a lie to the hairstylist about why those parts of my hair were that hard. And then I told a lie to other people about why those parts of my hair were shorter. I honestly don't remember what lie I came up with, but I was just too embarrassed to say that I went days without detangling my hair, and that caused my hair to like turn into rocks. I feel confident enough in myself to admit the truth now, but yeah, I definitely lied about that for a while. So from that, I learned the lesson of I can't be lazy if I want to grow out my natural hair. So then I followed the advice that I saw of doing my hair in the shower in sections. Like before, I was just like, I don't need to do that. Like whatever, I never had to do it that way before, but I really had to do it that way during the transition phase. Again, because the two different texture of hairs just loved wrapping around each other, and it was just very easy for it to be tangled. And I didn't want to lose any more of my hair. Like, I didn't want it to turn into a rock again. So I really made it a point to do it in 4 sections. And then along with that, to make sure I didn't have to wash my hair often, I would limit the amount of product I would put in my hair. So I would mostly just wear my hair in a bun or in a ponytail. About a year or a year and a half in, when I had a good amount of natural hair, I would start wearing my hair down more. But I had a hard time following the tutorials that I found on YouTube. Like, a lot of them said to wash your hair, condition it, like rinse it out, but then to put a towel around your head and like squeeze all the water out, and then get a water bottle and spray it and do it in sections. That never really made sense to me. Like, why would you take all the water out just to put it back in a little bit at the time? But that's what the majority of people were saying on YouTube. So I thought, okay, that's probably the best way to do it. But it just wasn't going to be the results that they were getting. And looking back on it, I think it's because my hair is a lot thicker than the people who are making those YouTube videos. So it might be easier for them to do their hair in that much sections, just because they have a lot less hair than I do. And also maybe they're just more patient. I'll say that. But I didn't learn until later on that an easier way to do your hair, or at least easier for me, is to leave your hair soaking wet and then put your product in while you're in the shower still. So like that you don't have to reapply in sections. You could just do it all at once. And this just makes more sense for me just because of how thick my hair is, 1. And 2, because of the amount of time that I'm willing to put into doing my hair. Like, I'm sorry, I don't want to spend 2+ hours doing my hair every single time I have to wash it. So anyways, I would wear my hair either in ponytails, buns, or I would like braid it like into 2 twists so it would have like a wavy effect and let it dry that way, or do protective styles if I had enough money to pay for those, because those are kind of expensive because they last for 2 months. And then that's when I found another hairstylist to help me like make my hair healthy while I was letting it grow. And I went to her about once a month, because when I went to her, she would straighten my hair and I wanted to avoid heat damage, which is why I didn't go more often. But whenever I would get so excited, like to want to see my hair when it was wet, to see how much natural hair I had, and like about when she thought it'd be a good time to cut off all the relaxed hair. And then I went in one day, and then as she was doing my hair, she was like, oh my gosh, I think the next time you come in, it's time for you to cut off all the relaxed ends. And I was so excited. So when I went in the next time, I remember, because I looked up like how to style natural hair, when she was doing my hair like normal, she was brushing through it, like detangling it in the sink. And I was a little confused by that, because you're not supposed to brush through curly hair when you're styling it. So it's like, okay, she's probably gonna put me back in, like she's probably detangling it to do something. I don't know what it is, but she probably has her reasons. And then she was cutting the ends, but she was like nipping it like she was trimming a bush or something. And I remember thinking like, this is weird. Like, I don't know what exactly she's wanting to do, but I wasn't looking at the mirror because I wanted a big unveil. And was it an unveil? She turned me around. I'm gonna put a picture up so you guys could see what it looked like. And she was like, oh my gosh, like, look, isn't this great? And I started crying. I was like, I look so ugly right now. Like, usually I had a hard time being honest when I didn't like a hairstyle to hairstylist, but with this, I could not hide. Like, it legit looked bad. And her response was, oh, maybe you don't want to go natural. Maybe you should go back to relaxing your hair, which I look back at now and it just makes me so angry. Like, there's already so much attached to natural hair, or at least it was at the time, of it being ugly, unprofessional, and all this stuff. So to finally have the decision of wanting to grow out my natural hair be discouraged by someone who just didn't style it properly, like, that's just not okay. And then she tried to tell me that in order for the curls to be defined, I would have to go in one curl at the time and wrap it around my finger in order for it to look how it did for most people, which is just not true. So she didn't charge me for that, which she shouldn't have because it looked bad. But I remember asking, like, can you straighten it? And she was like, no, there's not enough time. So I left looking like that. Like, she offered to put it in a bun. I was like, who goes to the salon to leave in a messy bun? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I left like that. And I remember I went home, and with the boyfriend I was living with at the time, I was just like, before you say anything, I know it looks bad. It's not supposed to look this way. And he was so nice about it. He was like, no, it doesn't look that bad. Like, he knew, like, how excited I was to see my natural hair, and he knew how disappointed in her I was to look like that, and that I just felt so ugly. Like, he just felt it immediately. So he was, like, really comforting about that, and I really appreciated that. But I didn't let that experience discourage me. Like, I just took that as, okay, I just won't go to her anymore. So I just looked up even more ways to do my hair and just worked on that more. And that's when I found another hairstylist that did my box braids, and she really focuses on teaching people about natural hair, both people who have natural hair or parents who have children with natural hair. And I went to her for about a couple months before she decided to actually trim off all the relaxed ends that I had, because it turned out that I still had quite a bit, and that's what was messing up like the curled look at the end, just because I would have my curly hair, but then there was like straight ends that was just kind of like pulling it down. So then once she cut that off, I noticed it was that much easier to define my curls when I did my hair. And since then, it's been about a year or two of me having like fully just natural hair and no relaxed hair at the end. It's still a work in process for me learning how to do my hair. But I will say having the technique of doing it in the shower when all of my hair is soaking wet has really helped. Along with that, I'm still learning different techniques, like if it's better to just use leave-in conditioner and mousse, or leave-in conditioner, cream, and mousse. Sometimes one thing works and the other thing doesn't. But a big thing I learned from my natural hair journey was how to have more confidence and how to persevere more. Like, I had to learn to be confident in myself and know that my abilities were going to get better. Like, just because I didn't know at that given time how to style my hair or how to take care of it, didn't mean that I wasn't going to learn or get better the more I practiced. And also, it really taught me to not just give up just because my hair was going through an awkward phase where it didn't look the best, or just because I made the stupid decision to not detangle my hair for those couple of days and have to cut off that hair again. I get it. I should have known, but I didn't let that experience just make me quit and go back to relaxed hair. I thought, okay, don't be lazy. Like, you need to put more effort if you really want to stick to this goal of growing out your natural hair. And that's what I did. And I'm so glad that I stuck to it. I love my hair, even when it's kind of messy. I love the thickness of it. I love the curls. Like, I just also love not caring if my hair got wet. Like, before, it was just really put in my head, don't get your hair wet, don't get your hair wet. But the freedom of just being able to walk out in the rain and not freak out, it's so worth it. So that was my personal journey of growing out my natural hair. If you've done the same, please share with me your journey in the comments. Or if you have relaxed hair, let me know if you're thinking about going natural. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you would like to further support my content, please go to patreon.com/yourfriendjanellis to become a member of my Patreon. As you may know, Patreon is a way for fans to support the content that they love on a monthly basis. Members of my Patreon enjoy the exclusive benefits of a chat community, live streams, and guaranteed access to me via direct messaging. By supporting my Patreon, you're allowing me to dedicate the time and effort necessary to create, edit, and upload new videos on a weekly basis. Thank you so much for your support, and I appreciate you all.